It's almost a scandal that we think of any language as low resource. How long would it take if every single teacher in Kenya actually recorded everything that they said to reach 1 trillion tokens, which is what some of these open source large language models are trained on? The time came out to be 2 months.
We've really taken the approach of helping people find their identity in the world of AI, giving a skilled craftsman a new tool. The tool doesn't replace this craftsman. Everything the craftsman has learned up to that point helps them to make best use of that tool.
Like, develop a new muscle memory for knowledge work. The more practice you get defaulting to these AI tools and getting a lot of muscle memory, and all of a sudden you'll see acceleration everywhere.
Hi, welcome to the Global Missional AI Podcast, where faith meets technology and where we explore how innovation can serve the kingdom of God. My name is Joshua Seal, and I serve as the Director of Global Missional AI. What if I told you the biggest barrier to Bible translation isn't time or money, but data? In a world where trillion token language models power ChatGPT, thousands of languages remain completely absent from the digital landscape. Not because their speakers aren't talking, but because no one is capturing what they say. Today, I'm joined by two pioneers tackling this exact challenge. Bullock has spent 12 years with XRi Global, working directly with Bible translators in Papua New Guinea, and is now leading their NLP team to bring AI capabilities to the world's lowest resource languages. Daniel Wilson is the founder and CEO of XRi Global, where he's applying his linguistics PhD to develop data collection tools to help language communities flourish through technology. What fascinates me about their work is they're not just building a better translation tools. They're fundamentally rethinking how we collect and optimize language data. Daniel's team calculated that Kenya's teachers could generate 1 trillion tokens of Swahili in just 2 months. The question isn't whether the data exists, it's how we can capture it efficiently and ethically. This conversation will be a little bit different than some of our others. You'll see the questions asked, and then you'll hear their answer. So just wanted to state that as a reality of this episode, but I still find this content fascinating and immensely valuable. But before we begin, a word from our partner, Glue. Glue is the technology platform for the faith ecosystem, providing values-aligned AI and comprehensive solutions for ministry leaders. Visit gloo.com to learn more. Also, mark your calendars for the Global Missional AI Summit 2026, taking place April 7th through the 9th, 2026 in Silicon Valley, California. This is the largest gathering of Christians working at the intersection of faith and artificial intelligence. Registration will be opening in the next few weeks, so I would encourage you to go to missional.ai to sign up for updates and be the first to know when tickets are available. Now let's dive in with Bullock and Daniel Wilson.
Hi, my name is Bullock. I have been with XRi Global for about 12 years. I spent a great deal of time on the field working in Papua New Guinea with Bible translators who are translating the Word of God into their own languages. Now I'm working with the SIL NLP team, and our main focus is how can we leverage AI technologies to serve the lowest resources languages in the world, both in translation for the Bible and other materials that benefit the community. And I'm joined here by my good friend, Daniel.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Wilson, founder and CEO of XRi Global. So our vision is to enable speakers of every language to flourish through the development and deployment of language technology. And so I've been in this space for a long time. Previously, I was in academia, did a PhD in linguistics, and then went into development and started developing tools to collect data and support communities around the world, and then have now taken the company private and I'm really enjoying the startup life and learning how to kind of leverage what we're capable of to serve as many people as possible. So I think that what we're watching in sort of the AI revolution right now is there's some really, really easy use cases, right? There's some obvious use cases where there's some sort of like friction around knowledge work that can suddenly be automated or augmented, right? And so one of them is sort of this idea I presented earlier about reducing the time to insight, right? I can go from a question about, any particular topic to insight, right? To an answer that I want, or maybe I'm curious about a broad array of things or how this connects to that, right? And then all of a sudden I can get access to that. I think that we're going to continue to see that kind of reshape a lot of how of what resources people turn to, right, in order to learn and find answers around strategy. And so just taking that time to insight down and creating actionable insight and intelligence on a lot of different things. I think that that's going to continue to happen. We're certainly seeing a lot of progress in the drafting of, Bible translation. I think that's only going to continue as well. Our methods will continue to be refined. The systems that we're using are to become more cost-effective and easier. New models with new capabilities are going to be leveraged. And so I think we're going to continue to see acceleration on the drafting, but then also like the engagement side as well. So the scripture engagement or engagement of Christian content and media, I think is also going to see a massive acceleration around the world, not just in the high resource languages, but also the low resource languages.
I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're really going to get out of the early adoption phase, and we're going to face the challenges of scalability. Right now we have highly specialized people who are at the forefront of using these tools, but we're going to have to bridge the training gap into the people engaged in ministry, whether that's pastoral ministry or missions ministry, are able to use these tools productively on a day-to-day basis. So I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we probably will see ourselves wrestling with these ideas of how can we scale? The things that we're discovering, how do they formulate into concrete tools and missions? And then how do we scale that so that a non-specialized user is able to make the most out of them? That's definitely true, I think, in the world of Bible translation, which has been kind of our wheelhouse for a while, Daniel and I. So far, we haven't really known people's perceptions of AI before we go and engage them in that conversation. And a lot of people have heard the term AI, but they don't really know what it is. They know it has something to do with technology. But once we start to walk them through what it is, I think the first thing that we have seen is just people's reactions and maybe even fears to, well, what does this mean in my life? Is this going to replace my usefulness in ministry, in work? And so we've really taken the approach of helping people find their identity in the world of AI, especially in ministry and Bible translation. And a lot of how we've tackled that is emphasizing that they're the skilled craftsmen. I work primarily with Bible translators, emphasizing that giving a skilled craftsman a new tool, the tool doesn't replace this craftsman. Everything the craftsman has learned up to that point helps them to make best use of that tool. And once people kind of find their identity in the world of AI, we see a lot of enthusiasm about experimentation. They feel freedom to adopt it into their workflow. But I find it interesting how almost universal that identity question of who am I in the world of AI is for those engaged in ministry and probably many kinds of work in this age.
So what's interesting, the data question is like it's almost a scandal, right? That we think of any language as low resource, because the reality is we're spilling data out of our mouths every day on the ground, right? It's uncaptured and unstructured. We did the math once on Swahili is considered a low resource language, and we looked at how many teachers there are in Kenya, for example, and there's 300,000 teachers in Kenya, and that if they were to wear a recording device around their neck, they teach for about 6 hours a day, and we calculated the amount of tokens that they say during that 6 hour period, right, in Kiswahili, in their language. And so we asked ourselves the question, okay, how long would it take if every single teacher in Kenya actually recorded everything that they said to reach 1 trillion tokens, which is what some of these open source large language models are trained on. And the time came out to be 2 months. So in 2 months, we could collect 1 trillion tokens in Swahili and train a large language model with it. But the reality is we're not doing that. There are privacy issues, why you wouldn't do that, et cetera. But like the fact that there is a low resource language is a bit of a scandal, right? Because the data is abundant. It's just not been put on the internet, right? In order to be harvested and used in order to train. So if we have finite resources to collect the data that people will give us, right, and a finite period of time, our question is, how do we optimize the intelligence per sentence, right? That's the thing we're always pursuing is, if I can only collect for a small period of time with a small amount of resources, how do I optimize that? What is that ideal data set, right? Optimizing the intelligence per sentence, kind of like what my wife hopes to do with me. And so what we've done is we've actually put a lot of sort of scientific experimentation into this to figure out, okay, when we're engaged with the native speakers of these communities, we want to make sure that the data that they're giving us is perfect for its intended purpose. And so after a lot of experimentation, we kind of have, we're getting very close to this ideal data set that I know that if I put this sentence in the app and you translate it for me, this quantity of sentences, if I get that, there's a high degree of predictability about the outcome of a model that we train with that data. And so that's the experimentation we've been doing, taking into account the limited time and resources that we have. And it's shown really encouraging results so far. We're able to collect that data, train a model, give the data to our partners at SIL. They train a model and generate drafts with it, and teams are using it, and translation is accelerating. So it seems to be working, which is really exciting.
What are you trying to accomplish in your ministry? What is your focus? And from there, try to network and figure out what tools are other people using profitably. There's a lot of people in the space who are trying a lot of different things. And I think even at this point, there are a lot of people out there that are looking for early adopters who can provide them feedback data. But I think there is so much out there and there's so much available that being very clear on what you're trying to do is going to help you sort through what I feel is a lot of white noise that is coming out, even in the ministry world, about what AI should be used for or could be used for.
I would say, like, the very first thing that you should do, it's a new muscle memory that is required to remember that this exists when you're doing any sort of knowledge work. And so I would recommend going to the different sites, like going to Claude, going to ChatGPT, right? Going to Meta's model, like just start using them and develop a muscle memory of saying, okay, I could do it how I used to do it, where I used to like Google search something and scroll through a bunch of links and then nothing quite fits. And then I got to get through all the promoted ones that are irrelevant. And like, why am I doing this? I'm just going to ask my question to ChatGPT or something. Like, develop a new muscle memory for knowledge work. And when you start, like, the more practice you get defaulting to these AI tools, the more you realize, oh, there's a whole section of things I can do now that I didn't used to do. There was one thing I did the other weekend, because we're encouraging our entire team to be AI first in everything they do, everything from operations to HR to finance to our engineers. Everything we do is AI first, and we're trying to develop that muscle memory, because you can optimize so much and get so much more work done so much faster. But there was one Saturday morning, I remember I wanted to clean my garage, but I had a couple of burning questions and a few tasks to do related to work. And this new AI agent called Operator had just come out, and I got early access to it. And so to test it out, I said, essentially, I want you to go find all organizations that have deployed chatbots for humanitarian purposes. And I want you to open a Google Sheet, and I want you to put the name of the company, their website, what countries they're deploying in, and what languages they support. And I pressed go, and then I walked out to my garage, right? And then the agent went to work, searching websites, reading PDFs, looking at news stories and everything. For 45 minutes, it worked while I was in my garage, cleaning my garage. And while I was there, I had a thought of import-export restrictions on AI chips into different countries because of a hardware project we're doing. And I wanted that question. So I went to deep research. I clicked deep research and I asked that question. And that was doing research for me for about 10 to 12 minutes on that question while I'm cleaning my garage. When I came back, I had both of those, when I was done, I had both of those things done for me, which would have taken an extraordinary amount of hours of multiple people in order to do that. And so I give that as an example of like your things, like the knowledge work that you have, learning what tools are available and getting a lot of muscle memory. And all of a sudden you'll see acceleration everywhere.
I think SIL, the best way to connect is, there are a lot of different subparts of SIL. If you're interested in what we're doing on the AI side of things, communicating with our team directly, you can find our information on SIL's website. We actually have a dedicated AI section of the SIL.org website that talks about some of our philosophy and theology behind the use. That would probably be the best way to get a feel for what we're doing as an organization, and that would give you a starting place to reach out to us with your questions, your concerns, your ideas.
Yeah, you're welcome to go to our website as well, XRiGlobal.ai. We're launching an API platform soon. So if you are doing something interesting in AI and you'd like to expand maybe the different languages that you support and the different populations that you want to communicate with what you're doing, we invite you to check out our platform once it goes live and engage with us. We would love to help anyone fulfill their vision and their mission by eliminating the language barrier. So if you're wanting to do something interesting around the world, but there's a language barrier, that's where we can help.